Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the economic problems of Pakistan, in particular about the fiscal space, about the trade deficit and about the shortage of dollars in Pakistan. The government has earlier announced that people should not stock with dollars and let them be in the market so that the price is stabilized. Now it's hovering around somewhere 158 rupees for a single dollar. At the same time, having said that, since we were looking for this IMF package, the bailout package was given to us. The total amount is $6 billion US. The first tranche of this amount, 991.4. I'll repeat, $991.4 million that has been received by the State Bank of Pakistan. So that is one of the reasons that the dollar is comparatively stabilized at the moment. But still, there's a long journey and a lot of issues, a lot of problems on the way. But what's the remedy? What sort of a solution do we have? In particular, the economic and the financial advisors of the Prime Minister. There was another news that the portfolio of the revenue has been taken away from Dr. Hafiz Sheikh, and now Ahmad Saab has been made the Federal Minister, and he's going to look after that ministry as a full-fledged, proper full minister. Let's see where it leads. We need to understand what sort of problems do we have and how to counter those. A lot of challenges at multiple fronts. That is exactly what the reality is all about. But to talk about this, we have with us in our studio. Let me introduce you to our panelists. We have with us on my right, Dr. Farida Faisal. She's a senior known educationist as well as an economist. Thank you very much, ma'am. And we have with us Dr. Kamran Naki Khan Saab. He's a senior business strategist and a professor at Hamdard University. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. And we have with us Shahryar Aziz. He's presenting at the Prime Institute. Thank you very much, Shahryar. Ma'am, let's start off from you. First of all, 991.4 million, the first tranche of this total aid package has been received by the State Bank of Pakistan. And we have seen the effect of that. The dollar during the last couple of days has been comparatively stabilized. It's still hovering around 158, 159, 157. But now people do expect that it won't be big jumps like 6 rupees or 7 rupees a day kind, which we have witnessed earlier in the previous month as well. Your take, ma'am, what sort of an effect will it make? And when the money is going to be slowly but surely will be coming in our State Bank of Pakistan, what sort of a difference can we see? Will we witness any sort of a control on the inflation or otherwise, ma'am, your take?
Control on inflation, I think that is going to be a tough one and we should be prepared for it. So that is the biggest challenge. Now, the money coming in is very good news, honestly. But I think that we will have to get used to the dollar hovering, because now money is not being injected to control the price of the dollar per se. So that fact, our investors and our industrialists, they will have to get used to the idea of a dollar which does not have one stable price throughout. Now, I still feel, and in some circles it is being discussed, that maybe our rupee is undervalued at this point in time. So the rate of the dollar might even go down as at the level where it is.
You believe that rupee is undervalued at the moment, ma'am?
Well, that is being discussed by some, experts. But of course, there's a lot of debate there.
And when you say the market forces affected, where do the market forces particularly affect, ma'am? Is it about the supply or demand?
It is more about the confidence in the market, which is at the moment shattered, and which the nerves, it's very unnerving kind of situation. That is why the Prime Minister himself, as well as his economic team, are going around in all these different industrial areas and talking to the investors and to the large industrialists to soothe down the nerves. I think in that area, this tranche coming in will be helpful. But eventually, Faisal, what this does is, this money does it buys us time. You must remember, IMF is just an emergency ward. Eventually, you will have to make, it is giving us a little bit of time during which we have to make our industries competitive. And to that end, the price of the dollar, floating price of the dollar is one point which can be an enabling environment in which the industries can flourish. But after some time, once this crisis situation is over, again we have small space and our industries better pick up. So that is a cause of great concern. Inflation, I don't think we will be able to control that, or to bring it down to single digit, even if it's 10%. That should be expected. Nobody should expect that there's going to be an easy time in Pakistan. It's not possible. We are still in the hospital.
People should be ready.
People should be ready
For some tough calls, I guess.
For some tough calls. But if we are to improve, then we must think of business circles and how to restore their competitiveness.
All right. Now, Dr. Naki, there was this very interesting analysis by one of the senior economists, and he says that we really need to do two things immediately. We need to put more focus on the import, and we should basically what should be done that at least 10 to 15% exports should further be reduced, and at the same time 10 to 15% of your exports should also be improved. So when you're talking about obviously the import bill coming down and the exports increasing, so there's going to be a lot of I think help for our economic condition at the moment. But sir, that can't be done overnight. Though for example, if you remember during the budget days we did talk about $4 billion worth of IT exports. But sir, I mean, when you talk about the current conducive environment and then your expectation is too high and you expect it to go at least 10-folds more, you think that is a viable sort of a proposition, sir?
If we see the outlook that has been presented by IMF, that basically the problem with the Pakistan is that there is a misaligned economic policies and quasi-deficits, fiscal deficits, and then current account deficits. These are the different challenges, economic challenges that Pakistan is facing. Coming to the about current account deficits, you have already highlighted that we have a difference between import and export, balance of payment problems. Government has curtailed and trying to curtail that particular import in the non-productive activities import that are not going to generate any kind of revenue in the future, but they are giving incentives to the exports. And that will have an export impact, not in the short term, in the long run. If we are looking...
There was a story that 200 mills have been shut down in Faisalabad. So you can well imagine about the level of unemployment.
So basically,
as far as production is concerned,
we have to, as far as shutdown is concerned, that is cost of production and competitiveness. They don't have much orders, and there are companies which are getting good orders, but they cannot fulfill those orders. We have some good pictures also, but we have also this kind of negative pictures also. So we should not project the total our export sector. We are competitive. There are good companies. We are doing well. But at least we need more and more. But at least it will take another 2 to 3 years. And then government should come up with a very clear policy. One important thing that has been identified that is structural reforms. One of the important things that government should do, that there should be strong support from the province also for consolidation of physical deficits. And support for the business sector also. There should be support from the district governance. And then when we come to, when we are going to implement this particular strategy of IMF and Pakistan's, so successful strategy needs communication, strong communication. And one of the weakness of this particular plan is that government has failed to communicate to the right stakeholders the benefit in the long run and necessary supports, except for the social safety nets program that government is, and that is also one of the important factor of this. Number one is decisive consolidation of fiscal consolidation. Second is improving the social safety net and bring resilience in the target communities, not everyone. Then fourth is our exchange rate. How we can, so that is it is a floating exchange rate or effective exchange rate. There is a lot of speculation, and the foremost challenge for the exchange rate is in big informal economy. and big informal and black money. And people are holding that dollar as a safety, as a safe haven. That is what. And that because of the reason that government have, that we are historically we have a very bad policies for bringing those informal sector into the formal sector. That is what serious issues with the Pakistan is. Then another important issue is that why many industries are going into bankruptcy is because of the cost rate, fuel prices, energy prices. And that energy prices was supported by quasi-physical deficit. Losses means that we have protected theft. We have protected many kind of circular debts which otherwise would have been recovered. So these are the issues which are really needs a lot of time, at least 2 to 3 years to make this economy minimum 2 to 3 years. So if you want, but the government has to come up with a very strong communication strategy and communicating to, and also with the support of the provincial government, with the support of the business communities. So engaging people. So engagement is the most important aspect.
I totally agree with you on that. But sir, there are a lot of flaws also. Moving on to Sharia, I'll just give you a personal example. Our house is being renovated, and obviously there's a lot of work going on. So I went to buy some tiles and all the accessories of the bathrooms. And these shops are huge, multi-story, and I think multi-million-dollar businesses for sure. And honestly, you know what? I was surprised to see that they are not taking any debit cards or any credit cards. They want cash. And I said, I asked that guy, and he said that, now, this is the only option we have. I mean, this is what most of these businessmen are thinking. How to get away. I mean, for example, there's a transaction worth 50,000 rupees, or maybe you've purchased something worth 50 lakh rupees. So what they'll do is they'll make a bill, 48, 47, 48, 47, like, these many checks for that matter or anything. So this is how, they know the trick of the trade. Yes. They can get away with everything and anything. How the government is going to put a check on that level as well, sir?
Well, as far as businesses are concerned, in for a penny, in for a pound. So if FPR was to be run...
They make good money, but they don't pay any tax. 1% totally in your overall kitty, sir. 1%. Yeah. That's nothing.
If FPR was to be run on the lines of a privately owned bank, promotions would have been on the basis of performance, and we would see that their increments would also be linked on the basis of their performance. There are numerous FPR regional offices in which the cost of tax collection is greater than the tax collected. If it was run by a private sector bank, this certainly would not have been the case there. But coming back to the loan installment that Pakistan has received today, my viewpoint is that Pakistan should consider this as this IMF deal as a godsend, because we can find numerous other creditors such as ADB.
ADB is also going to give you.
World Bank and certain other friendly countries. But apart from the IMF, no one would have imposed the kind of checks and balances that are severely needed in our economy right now. Because the financial managers of Pakistan, they severely lack the self-discipline. Now, under the IMF program, we have been constrained, and this time they have made all of the conditions, most of the conditions are front-end loaded. So we have already incorporated them in our fiscal budget for financial year 2020. So this is a great news for Pakistan, that everyone knew that circular debt is bad for Pakistan, that our state-owned enterprises are bleeding our national exchequer like anything, that we need to improve our fiscal imbalance between the federal and the provincial governments, that we need to reduce our government expenditures, but no one was doing anything about it. So now it's a great thing that IMF will make us do these right things, and let's hope that this time finally Pakistan would turn around its economy and it would not turn out to be like in the past, that we underwent an IMF program but failed to reform ourselves. There are, of course, a number of risks involved under this 4-year program. First of all, the current PTI government does not hold a majority in the upper house, the Senate, so this can limit some of the financial bills, the passage of the financial bills. Secondly, the $400 billion that have been estimated to be earned as a provincial surplus, that is a big question mark whether or not the provinces will comply, especially the Sindh province, because it is not the government of the PTI. And then we have to see also that the fiscal limits that we have set out for ourselves, we will adhere to that, because what happens is that certain budget gets voted, but at the end of the year we get told that this is over and above that we have spent that. So let's hope that this time around these sort of things would not come up.
The government is really working hard as far as the expenditure is concerned, but obviously when you talk about the revenue, that is where the problem seems to be. We'll just take a short break here. After the break, we'll return and we'll continue our discussion. Stay with us.
And news just in, the US President Donald Trump will welcome Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan to the White House on the 22nd of July. According to the spokesperson of the White House, the US President Donald Trump will be welcoming Prime Minister Imran Khan to the White House on the 22nd of this month. Spokesperson White House has confirmed that US President Donald Trump will be welcoming Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan to the White House on the 22nd of July 2019. According to the spokesperson White House, US President Donald Trump will be welcoming Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan to the White House on the 22nd of this month. This has been confirmed by the spokesperson of the White House. The visit will be focusing on strengthening cooperation between both the countries, and it will also be focusing on peace, stability, and economic prosperity in the region. For further details regarding the announcement made by the spokesperson of the White House and the upcoming visit of Prime Minister Imran Khan to Washington, we will be speaking to Shabir Ahmed Vagra. Yes, Shabir, what details can you give us?
Yes, Sana, this particular very important visit, there was another confusion arise due to the previous day's statement by a spokesperson of State Department, United States State Department, where they showed their ignorance about the dates of visit. that is picked by Pakistani media and also international media, and that raised a lot of questions. But the last Foreign Office briefing, which took place in Islamabad, Foreign Office spokesperson categorically confirmed that on July 22, Prime Minister will have a meeting with President Donald Trump. And now, after all that fuss which was created by misunderstanding due to the spokesperson of State Department of United States, today White House spokesperson has categorically confirmed that President Trump will welcome Prime Minister Imran Khan at the White House on July 22, and the visit will focus on strengthening cooperation between the two countries and also bring peace, stability, and economic prosperity to the region. As you know, Pakistan right now is in the middle of facilitating Taliban and the United States negotiations, and there are a little bit of you can ask that peace and stability issue is also under consideration. So that is why this visit is very important. And in the context of recent direct talks between Afghan Taliban and also the Afghan government, which took place in Doha a couple of days back, that was also the first time. So the Pakistan's role, and especially this visit, is very important in the context of regional peace and stability, as well as Pakistan's economic prosperity.
Right, thank you for joining us, Shabir Ahmed Bagra, speaking to us regarding the White House spokesperson confirming that the US President Donald Trump will be welcoming Prime Minister Imran Khan on the 22nd of July. We'll keep updating you as more news comes in. Keep watching PTV World.
Welcome back after the break. Dr. Farida, there was this very interesting story published by Shahbaz Rana in the Tribune. And what he said was that the International Monetary Fund has said that Pakistan's external debt will peak to 130 billion within 4 years. Let me also have Dr. Hafiz Pasha comment on this. And Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saab.
Assalamu alaikum.
Dr. Saab, thank you very much for taking your time out and being a part of the show. Dr. Saab, referring to one of the tweets and a story in the Express Tribune, I want to give you a few facts and I want you to comment on that. First of all, sir, the IMF has said that Pakistan's external debt will peak to $130 billion within the next 4 years. You mean practically what they're saying is this is 2019 till 2023, it will peak to 130 billion. Net addition of $34.6 billion or 36.3% under the government of the Prime Minister Imran Khan. Now, interestingly, Khan Sahib has always been criticizing this, but now the facts which I have, that there will be a minimum net addition of 34.6 billion, which will take it up to 130 billion to the external debt, despite repayment of 48 billion US dollars during the next 5 years. So practically, you will be paying 48 billion dollars for the debt servicing and all, and in addition, it is going to be accumulated to 130 billion. Sir, your take.
Well, you see, the key critical number in this is the debt repayment. It is rising exponentially. And the reason for that is that many of our relatively mid-term or short-term debts are beginning to mature. For example, in November, we have to retire a Sukuk bond. Yep. And this will happen over the next few years. So, as they say, it's catching up with you. And these numbers are based on optimistic assumptions about whether we can cut our current account deficit this year down from about $13.5 billion to $6.5 billion. That is an optimistic assumption. If we are unable to do that, actually the debt cumulatively will rise even more. And this is the most worrying part, that when the fund leaves Pakistan after 3 years, we will actually be in an even bigger and a more difficult situation, and even in a much bigger debt trap than we were when the fund program starts. So this is the unfortunate reality, and we have to probably find ways to, in fact, now the real issue is debt repayment and no longer the trade deficit.
Dr. Saab, whether this is a good, bad or ugly reality, but it is unfortunately a reality. So you think if this trend continues and whatever the speculations are, they develop the way they are developing at the moment, you see in another 3 to 4 years, things might get worse if, there's a big if, sir, if the corrective measures are not taken and certain areas really need to be set within the next 2 years, sir. If they're not, then things would be really difficult, right?
Absolutely, and the most important is not really the revenues. The most important lifeline for Pakistan are our exports. If our exports don't grow by double-digit rates in the next few years, we will be in deep trouble. And let me also tell you that the IMF has very skillfully not indicated that there remains a gap in financing. And we will have to continue to borrow commercially and float bonds over the next 3-5 years. And that will continue to put even greater pressure on our debt repayment obligations. So the bottom line is export, export, export.
There primarily is the 3 ways. Either you generate more revenue or you depend on your remittances. I mean, they've been consistently improving. But when you talk about your export and you talk about your import, you have to improve your export for sure, sir, to get more dollars. But the import has to be brought down as well. Now, sir, these consumer items for that matter, I mean, they have skyrocketed. I mean, look at the prices. I mean, anything which was for 5,000 rupees, they've practically doubled it. Still, sir, people are buying, interestingly. I mean, what formula, if there's certain purchasing power within a certain sect in the society, and that sector particularly is looking after so many affairs also. Do you think now there has to be a check? No imports. Forget about the duties, sir.
Well, the problem is that you look at what happened last year. Our consumption of petroleum products fell by 20%. And this is perhaps the most powerful indicator of a decline in the level of activity in the economy. High-speed diesel is used for transport and transportation of goods particularly. So the economy is really on the way down. And unless we are able to find some way of introducing some degree of recovery, our revenues are not going to increase. We have a target of over 40% growth. That's really very much a kind of
optimistic target, sir.
Absolutely too optimistic. We have, and you see the tragedy is in the budget. They have introduced measures which might have a negative impact on exports. This was not the time to do so. And unless our exports double in the next 5 years, we are really in a very, very difficult and perhaps inextricably complicated situation.
Worse than the current situation, sir? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Now, this is what Pasha Saab is saying, and
Yes.
I've got a lot of trust in what he says because he's such a great analyst also. Now, ma'am, looking at this sort of data, it does give you goosebumps, right?
I know Dr. Hafiz Pasha is a senior, economist, and I have honestly all my respect for the work that he's done. But I can disagree to some extent on some of the scenarios which have been built. They do not necessarily have to take that kind of turn. Neither do you have to be overly optimistic. I think that the basic reason that the current account deficit goes up is because of your fiscal deficit, which means that the balance between how much the government is spending and how much it's earning, fiscal deficit. So these twin deficits, they feed on one another, right? So if you can somehow tackle the issue of fiscal deficits through revenues, That is one good signal. So you'll have to attack the problem from many ends. As you know, initially also I said that the real basic issue is competitiveness, right? So yes, that's exactly what Dr. Pasha is also saying, that you have to increase your exports, and that will only come when you make your exports more competitive in the rest of the world. Agreed. Another thing.
But ma'am, you need to take certain measures on
Agreed.
appropriate times.
Exactly.
And
now,
unfortunately,
okay,
it's not that,
Faisal,
today I decide and tomorrow I start exporting.
No,
I mean, you need to have that system.
Agreed. But you see, there are other positive indicators as well. For
example,
when we talk about increase in interest rate, and I think Dr. Naqi was also saying that it has a negative impact on the business activity. Agreed.
Correct.
But at the same time, it has a positive impact on saving. I know that kind of saving in the banks. Do you see? The deposits in the banks are swelling at this point in time because the interest rate is high. The point is that these times are critical, but economic activity is there, and what you rightly observed is that economic activity has not stopped, it is taking place. Now all we have to do is to make sure that that economic activity is not based on imported products, but rather the replacement starts taking place within Pakistan.
Government
means
has
domestic.
not given any replacement, ma'am. For example, if you are
It does
importing
not.
XYZ products, at least you need to have ABC available in Pakistan, even at a
That's
lower
not
quality.
the government's job.
No, ma'am. That is the government job in a way that it has to provide that sort of an environment for those manufacturers to produce that. Unfortunately, that's not happening. Rather, those manufacturings are either moving out or shutting down their
Nobody's
business.
moving out at this point in time.
I mean,
half of them may not be. Yes, they are used to certain conditions. They are used to certain patterns of working where they were not paying any taxes. And now you have to, because if you don't take taxes from them, then the other side of the problem goes out of
there's
control.
another question.
So this problem
Since
is
you're an
going to be
economist,
attacked from many sides.
Let me ask you another question.
Okay.
You said that the people of Pakistan, mostly who can afford or who have money, that they have deposited that in the banks. Yes, ma'am, that's correct. But interestingly, whosoever
external
has got
sources
money
also.
in the bank in rupee form, that money has been depreciated.
It has.
Unfortunately, to a very different level, ma'am.
It
right?
has.
And at the same time, when you talk about the interest rate, which is around 12.75%, if I'm not wrong, which private sector is going to borrow that money at such an interest rate under these circumstances to expect a certain growth?
Listen, it is going to happen. The reason being that in Pakistan, the demand is there, even locally the demand is there. Externally also, you see many of our products, the net, for example, our ready-made garments, the exports has, the volume of export has not dropped, it is going up. But because the dollar rate has also gone up, so we don't see that difference. What it implies is that your products are accepted in other countries, right? So the competitiveness is achievable. Now what the government has to do, what it has to concentrate on doing, is providing good governance, ensuring the business community that this tax is in their favor, because if it is not done, then the entire economy will fall in on or cave in on itself, and that doomsday scenario which you read out to me, that is going to happen. Unless we all stand together at this point in time. And if we do, trust me, just like our cricket team, we can do miracles.
Well, I was actually thinking.
I mean, was anybody expecting that, we are going to perform like that? That is just a little analogy of what Pakistan can do. Nobody can predict us, Faisal. Trust me on this one. Nobody. And I believe
looking at the
that
history of the last
economy,
72 years,
no,
I
don't
doubt
look
it.
at histories, please.
Because that gives me the trend, ma'am.
No, it's...
And looking
it
at the
was
current
not-
scenario,
it
I
has
mean, all the
always been
ingredients
uneven.
present,
No, it has always been uneven, never always bad. We have major issues which we need to resolve, and only good governance can resolve that. So that is what we should be asking our government, not just putting them on the spot that it's undoable. Just improve your governance. And in some areas, they are trying to do that. And I think, again, as Dr. Naqi said, explaining to the business community also that now this culture of not giving your, your percentage of tax that is, due to you,
Madam,
is not going to be working out anymore.
despite the exercise made by the government 1,37,000 people have become filers.
Yeah.
Or they have declared their assets. 1,37,000 out of, forget about the overseas, the current population. I mean, that's ridiculous, honestly speaking. Your comment and then over to you, Naqi Saab. Naqi Saab, I'll just come back to you. Please go ahead.
As a think tank professional, we maintain a certain outreach to different investors in Pakistan. And recently we found out that those people who are now willing to invest in the tourism sector in Pakistan, especially in the Gilgit-Baltistan province, when they set up a hotel, there are the usual suspects such as the Deputy Commissioner's office and the police, so NOCs from them, okay, that are acceptable. But surprisingly, it came up that the most innocuous of government departments, the Environmental Protection Agency, I used to think that the Ministry of Climate Change is the most, we use the word in Pakistan, khudde line. So whenever a minister gets appointed, we say the khudde line laga diya. So the Environmental Protection Agency comes up and they produce a long list. And one look at that list is enough to convince anyone that no business in Pakistan can fulfill all of those requirements. So when those investors ask, okay, so how, for example, if they are setting up a hotel, so if they ask that, how do we meet all of these requirements? We cannot do this. Then they say, okay, so looking at the size of your hotel, would you be willing to pay $500,000? And then you pay $500,000 and then Environmental Protection Agency gives you its NOC and then on to the next government department. So if this is the state of situation, IMF can improve your fiscal administration for you, but as far as ease of doing business and export promotion, there it is the government itself that will have to do something. IMF will not move into your export promotion.
They can give you the guideline. They can bring you to the water, but eventually...
At the end, you have to yourself come up with a product to sell to the world.
Absolutely, sir. Dr.
So finally, what we can conclude, we have economists, we have doctors, engineers, professionals, deputy commissioners, police, but we don't have managers, we don't have leaders. This is the unfortunate part of Pakistan. And what the IMF is saying that you can only achieve this through labor productivity. And labor productivity needs good managers and efficiency, professionals, managers and leaders.
Qatar needs one.
And unfortunately, this part has not been addressed.
That kind of
labor
available, which is technically correct.
We don't need advisors, we need good managers. We need good managers at FPR level who can really deliver the goods. They should be a good service-oriented leaders. As far as tourism is concerned, I agree with Imran Khan. This is the only area which has a potential, and it needs a little support from the community and the district government. That is an area where we can really generate some of the cash flows in terms of dollars, in terms of foreign exchange, in the short term. This is right. As far as manufacturing sector is concerned, agriculture sector, we need a very strong commodity chain if we really want agriculture reforms and policy reforms. Then we don't have a policy maker. We don't have any kind of activity where public policies, debates and conferences and academia works on it. We don't have public policies. So that is major area. That we have to do something. If we really want to see an export in apparel sector, there should be a clear policy for the 5 to 10 years and a clear responsive policy where ease and access is there. When we are talking about ease of doing business, it means a clear policy for every subject. Whether if somebody is going to export more business in manufacturing or exporting some raw material or exporting some kind of parts from Pakistan, there should be a clear policy. What kinds of incentive is government is going? What kind of rebate in terms of energy will be given to that particular party? What will be the social cushion will be there for the laborers? And so these things are very important.
These are also important, but sir, these are the issues you need to manage at a different level.
So first thing is, IMF program will only be successful when there will be a support from the province. Mind it. And if province can only support when there is a district government. So critical issue in Pakistan is there is no district government. Serious district governance is very important.
Micromanagement.
Even if every city, that is one area, if we have a really strong district government in like northern area or some other parts of it, so you can see how much you can generate money through
Because
tourism.
whenever there is a tourist coming into your country,
Our problem is
disposable
we want clean water, social
money, yeah.
social livelihood. How can improve? It is the job of the district government. It is not the job of the chief minister, not the job of Imran Khan. We should understand these things, and Imran Khan should
It has to be trickled down.
He understands this thing, but unfortunately, he needs a very good team to implement those things.
Yeah.
So we want a very firm people. They should be soft, but at the same time, they should be very strong in terms of execution. There should be no, I mean, this is what required. FBR reform is the kind of scenario. I have all the respect for Hafiz Paja Saab and others people. We should not create such kind of despondency. We should give a positive picture. Pakistan has
Sir, in
lot
management,
of
you're a professor of management, sir. It is
So,
believed that if you
no,
know
no.
your problem,
Yes.
if you actually know your problem, half your problem is solved.
solve. Our problem
The
is
problem
we
is
don't
that
have.
we do not know even what the problem is. But if you know, then, I mean,
Our, as far as political stability is concerned, you invest on district governments. As far as economic policy is concerned, you invest on 3-4 areas. Number one, power sector. Why we are selling at a less price the energy? Why we are buying
people
at a
are
more-
already
why
dying, sir.
people
People are having
why
heart
there is
attacks
a
because of these
why
prices.
there are line
Look at
losses?
your-
30% line losses.
220 billion rupees a year is your line loss, sir.
Yeah.
And you need at least $70 billion to fix your discourse, basically.
So this is what they have highlighted as a quasi-fiscal losses. It is actually not losses. It is not being reflected, but it is indirectly increasing the debt of Pakistan.
That is what I'm saying, sir. Then either you should go for privatization at a much
And
larger level.
It is undermining.
Generate some
As
money.
far as Dr. Farida said about increasing interest rate, increase savings. But it's, Dr. Farida, it's not creating jobs. It's only increasing deposits, but it's not, but as far as bank is concerned, where they will disperse that money.
People do not have a choice. I mean, if you want
nobody's
to
there,
deposit in
nobody's
dollars,
there,
I mean, you're practically under that microscope of the government. You don't want that.
Nobody's
If you have
going
got
to
money,
borrow
I mean,
that
even
money.
if, I mean,
And then the serious issue is our big informal sector. At this time, if you go to any market of Pakistan, Judia Bazaar, there is a committee system. Everybody is contributing 50,000, 1,500,
That's everywhere,
150. So this is
women
the way
love to
they
do that
generate
too.
the revenue. The Hafiz Pasha should realize this is the big opportunity.
Yeah.
So people are billion of rupees is daily generated from
trust
committee system.
deficit, sir. I can
Financial
trust
system.
my next door
Yes,
neighbor, but I don't trust the government.
One of my
Unfortunate.
about 10 years
Sir,
ago,
last 1 minute. I
one
just,
Chinese said,
Sir.
yeah, your government is poor, your people is rich.
people are very rich, by the way, sir. Ma'am,
And
quick
in
comment
China,
and over
people
to you then,
government is
Sharia.
rich.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that you hit the nail on the head. It is the government has to establish its credibility, establish the trust, and if it can, with the business community, I assure you that these targets can be met. But that is the important thing. How to establish credibility? Exactly the same pattern as Dr. Naki is saying, that you have to give good governance, you have to have good management. You do that, in a year's time, the trust will be built up, and then these targets, I assure you, can be built. But it needs to be a concerted effort. I think the government has a desire to do that, but it's sustainable will. That is what we want from our government, and we should support it as long as it.
Will seems to be there, ma'am. There you go, sir. Last closing comment.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister based on his performance, economic performance, especially in the Gujarat state. So, taking your point forward, if we empower our district governments enough, it can become a nursery for our future chief ministers, and similarly, our chief ministers can find a route to come up to the national level. So, we need to develop some sort of a successive planning.
I swear, Sharia.
Currently, Prime Minister Imran Khan has no succession planning in his party. So maybe this can be an important way that improve your performance.
Is always problem, Pakistan.
Well, anyway, let's see. Let's see. how
Succession
things move.
strategy is
Thank you very
always-
much, Sharia.
Thank you.
Dr. Saab, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Dr. Farida. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you tomorrow. Till then, you take good care. Good afternoon. News.